Hi, everyone. We're letting panelists filter in, so it's good to see those of you who are attending. We're going to just give it a second for a few other people to join, and I'll introduce us shortly. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and making sure that we all agree that we're in the right place. Can everyone see my screen now? Awesome. So hi, everybody. I'm Steele Wagstaff. I am the Customer Experience Lead at Pressbooks, and the webinar I'm hosting today is called Enhancing Student Learning with Pressbooks Results. This is a community webinar, so it's open to the community. Anybody's welcome and interested to attend. And we're really excited today because we are going to be talking about student learning. There's two things, kind of housekeeping notes I don't want to share. If you are attending this webinar, there is a Zoom chat. Please use the chat to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, what brings you here, what you're curious about. And you can also share comments and questions to the larger group through the Zoom chat. If you have a question for a panelist that you'd like them to address, there's also what's called the Zoom Q&A function. So when you click the webinar chat, you'll see the ability to enter comments in the chat that go to hosts and panelists. That would be the kind of thing that you would want panelists to address. And then you see the ability to put a comment to everyone. And so the comment to everyone goes to the chat. And then the Q&A button, it's separate in the Zoom interface, will allow you to pose questions for the panelists that we can then answer later. I can already see some people introducing themselves in the chat. Thank you. It helps us feel a little less nervous, I think, just to know that they're humans on the other end and who they are. So I appreciate that. I'll go on to the introduction. The real stars of the show today are the panelists. I introduced myself, but we have 4 panelists, each of whom are faculty or instructional designers at various institutions around North America. First panelist today is Phil Sukram. He's an assistant professor of accountancy and business law at St. Peter's University. We also have Kate Neff, who is a senior lecturer and the Spanish language program director at the University of Virginia. We have Rebecca Lindsay, who is both an instructional designer and a history instructor at Utah Valley University. And last but not least, Cameron Ford, who is an associate professor of management and the director of the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership at the University of Central Florida. What we tried to do in putting this panel together was think about who are people that represent a pretty wide spectrum of disciplines, that have a pretty broad set of experiences, a career experience both teaching face-to-face and blended courses online, and that are thinking about kind of innovative pedagogical uses for how they want to incorporate open education or interactive content into their courses. And so you'll hear about their experiences today. We've asked each of them to give a short kind of 5-minute overview of what their course context was, what some of the pedagogical challenges they were trying to address, and some of the impact that they saw in using Pressbooks Results. I will turn it over to them shortly, but first what I wanted to do is to kind of give everybody a grounding or context in what Pressbooks Results is, if you're hearing about it for the first time, or if you haven't yet used it yourself. Rather than having them show their courses, I'll just show a demo course. And in the video, in the slides itself, we have a video, kind of a canned video that people can watch. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go into a live demo and show a couple of components. The first thing to know is that this is something that can be used with Pressbooks. So here I'm in a demo chapter in Pressbooks, and the idea is you can activate and use a plugin called H5P. H5P is a free and open source tool for building interactive quizzes and other types of learning material. Once it's active in your course, you'll see a little button over on the left that says H5P content. And so in this case, I'm going to click Add New and open up a new window here that shows me that I can add new H5P content. I've selected an essay activity type, and I went to the H5P website to just grab a sample essay question. So I'm going to go ahead and click Download this essay type. And instead of creating a new one, I'm just going to upload a new one in my course. So I'll come to the Add New button. I'll click Upload, just in the interest of time. I'll download this pre-built essay activity, and I'll say Use. So I'm telling Pressbooks, make a new H5P essay question. And this is called, it's an essay about The Hobbit. So I'm asking students to describe the plot of The Hobbit, basically. This isn't something I'm actually doing in a real course, but it's just for demo purposes. So I've created a new H5P activity here, and this will be automatically graded. I come back to a Pressbooks course, And here in the course, you can see I've got a sentence, a sample H5P activities, and I want to insert a new H5P activity. So from this chapter, let me close these other tabs. From this chapter, I will click the Add H5P button, and I'll find the essay that I just created and click Insert. So at this point now I have a chapter that has 3 sample H5P activities. I'm going to go ahead and preview and take a look and see what it looks like. It's pretty minimal here. I just have a multiple choice question, a true-false question, and an essay question. In your course, you can build it however you like, but in many cases, you'll have chunked content followed by a formative assessment and so forth. When Pressbooks Results is active, you see underneath your chapter this crucial box here. This is for configuring your chapter for grading with the LMS. You'll see the name of all the H5P activities that can be graded in your chapter, what type of activity they are, and if you click them, you could actually see the activity in context. The first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, I want all 3 of my activities to be part of my grade. And then I'm going to choose a grading scheme. You'll hear from the panelists about which grading scheme they chose and why, and all information about that. But in this case, I'll either pick, do I want to keep track of the student's first attempt, their average attempt, or their best attempt? I'll go ahead and say best attempt for this chapter. And then I click Save. This is what has to happen in Pressbooks. I've now added graded components to a chapter and I've configured it for grading. At this point, Pressbooks Results is ready to use with my learning management system. So I'll come over to a demo course that I have in Canvas. And at this point, as the instructor, I want to add my new graded chapter in my graded activities section. So I'll click the plus button, I'll click external tool, and then I'm going to click the Pressbooks content selector. Janelle, we don't hear anything for you, so I think we're okay with your question in the chat. Here, what's going to the LMS will show me all of the available resources that I have access to in my Pressbooks instance. If I'm using Pressbooks Results, I'll go ahead and bring in the Pressbooks Results viewer, and then I'll go down and I'll find the particular chapter that I want to bring. I can't even remember what it was called. Sample graded chapter. All right, so here I found this book, the interactive Pressbooks book, and I can bring in any of the content from this chapter into my course. I will see an icon that says, that looks like this with the word graded assignment for anything that's been configured for grading. Anything that hasn't been configured for grading will just show up as a linked resource, and I could also bring those into my course. In this case, I'm just going to bring in the one chapter for demo purpose, and I'll click Select Content. And that is what needs to happen to bring your graded content into the LMS. At this point, you can see I brought in a new sample graded chapter. By default, it was worth 10 points. So as an instructor, I can come in and edit the assignment settings. Let's say I want this to be worth, I don't know, 15 points instead, and I want to put it in an assignment group. Or I'd like to assign it a due date. I can make it due on the 30th of April. And I'm going to click Save and Publish. So now it's available to my students. That's the configuration piece that happens on the LMS side. What I'll do now is I'll go into the student view and show you what a student sees when they interact with this content. So here I'm a student, I'm in the student view in this course, and I'm going to go ahead and click on modules and find that sample graded chapter and complete this as a student. The student will load this activity, and what they're actually loading is the live version of my Pressbooks content. So if I realized I wanted to make an edit or an update, I could make it, and the student would see whatever updates I made anytime they click this link. And here they see that there is a multiple choice question about the most populous cities in Washington and Oregon. I've entered those 2 answers and got that correct. This is a true-false question. I'm going to say false, and I get that one wrong. And then I'm going to write about The Hobbit. The Hobbit is a story that involves a halfling named Bilbo, a magic ring, and a dragon named Smog. There are lots of dangerous adventures. That's not the greatest essay, but that's what I'm going to do. It gives me some feedback here. It gives me 30 out of 80 points on that one. So I've completed this activity and I probably earned a grade for this. So I come into the grades, you can see I've done my sample graded activity and I earned a 5.78 out of 15. As a learner, I may want to understand, well, why did I earn that grade? How did I get those points and how could I improve? To do that, I can come to the Pressbooks Results viewer. And in the Pressbooks Results viewer, I will see the details of my attempts on all of the graded, oops, I went to the wrong place here. What did I do? Of course, there's always something that goes wrong in my demo. Okay, whew. Okay, great. So what I want to show is the sample graded chapter. Here in the sample graded chapter, you'll see there were 83 total points available from the activities, and this was being graded on the best attempt. For my true false question, I'll be able to see I entered false, and that was an incorrect answer, and I can see all of the attempts that I've made there. For the fill in the blank question, I can see I answered Seattle and Portland, and those were both marked as correct for my attempt, so I got 2 out of 2. And for the essay, I will see this is what I wrote for my essay, and I got 30 points. So if I wanted to improve my score on that, I could go back and rewrite the essay and reattempt the true-false question. I can also see, for example, previously I came in and I did a literature activity, and I can see that I scored 20 out of 20 here, and the details here are on my essay. I submitted an early essay and I didn't do so well. I just got a 1 out of 3, but I came in and I submitted a second essay, and this one I did much better. I gave a more substantive response. The instructor in the course can also come to this activity viewer and see details for the whole course. So here, as I'm an instructor, I can go and look and see how is the whole course doing on this need occur activity. And here I can see, well, almost nobody's done the essay. But if I were to go to the next page and I could see, all right, Juliet scored 2 out of 3, Cindy scored 2 out of 3. But these students are really struggling at, say, the, oh, I'm on the anatomy of skin activity. But you can see from at a glance how students are doing on various activities and what their performance looks like. I will pause the recording there, and I saw that there were a couple of questions before I share it with other folks. For the essay prompts, the essay is automatically graded through the use of keywords that you provide as an instructor. So you can determine how many points you give for which keywords and how that works. It's not the best probably system for automatic grading of essays, but what is helpful is it gives a quick score and it does submit the response so that you can see it and could adjust the score or give additional feedback for the student. So it's not using AI, it's using predefined rubric that the instructors provided for the particular essay question type. All right, so that was a really fast, like really rapid demo of what Pressbooks Results is. I hope you can see some of the capabilities and what's possible. Now I think we want to get into the really interesting part of this conversation, which is to have our faculty panelists who have actually used this for real with real students in their courses, talk about their experience, what their context was, what they were trying to do, and how it worked. And the first panelist we're going to share, I'm going to go to Phil first. If you're willing, I'm going to share my screen again and let you present from that.
Sure, no problem, Steele. Thanks for the great demo. It's great to see all the strides that Pressbook has been making. Great, excellent. So thanks, Stu. Appreciate it. It's good to see everybody. I hope everybody had a happy Easter weekend for those that were observing. My name is Philip Sukram. I'm an associate professor of accounting at St. Peter's University in New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey. And I started to use Pressbooks in the last 2 years, trying to develop free accounting resources that my students could use in our accounting classes. So essentially what I ended up doing was I took the first introductory chapters of a financial accounting textbook, about the first 5 chapters, and I broke them out into 8 learning modules. And I kind of break up each learning objective into the fact that you can read each learning objective in a day. So the basis of my project is the fact that you can learn the basics of accounting in 45 days. The benefits that Pressbooks has provided is that I've been using it for not only my introductory accounting classes, but primarily on the right-hand side of the screen. I adopted Pressbooks formally in my senior accounting capstone course. It's called AC 480, which is a in-person hybrid course this past fall 2024. There was about 15 students in the class, and the class runs, we meet about 2 times per week for about 50 minutes each, and it was 16 weeks back in the fall. That was a hybrid course. I also used Pressbooks in my asynchronous graduate course, AC 520 Financial Accounting and Reporting. That's an 11-week course that's just asynchronous, about 16 students. And, we ended up getting really good feedback from our students with their ability to not only use the accounting modules to learn, and this was supported through our Old Tool University library, but one of the biggest positives of Pressbooks is that it really allows students, the H5P activities that are embedded in Pressbooks. I did the grade pass back the results viewer with our LMS, which is Blackboard. And what it allowed students to do is kind of complete the assignments at their own pace. And I think for anyone who's taught a course, in a 16-week semester, 11-week semester, or any type of semester that you have, there are always peaks and valleys that go on during the semester. Sometimes students don't get to start class right away on the first day, or maybe they have some sort of extreme event that prevents them from continuing in the class. I think the nice thing about Pressbooks was that it allowed students to engage in the class whether they were able to attend physical in-person sessions of class or not. I know typically for accounting, especially whether it's the fall or usually the springtime, a lot of our students engage in tax internships and they work at companies where they have to perform tax services. So, the demand of that type of internship, it requires them to be at the employer presence maybe 3 times a week, 2 times a week, or when it gets closer to tax filing deadlines, they have to put a little more time in, which reduces the amount of time that they can be in class. So Pressbooks has provided a solution that it allows students to complete the assignments even if each week isn't necessarily the same for them from a work perspective. And I think it really helps because students are able, like I said, to complete the assignments and earn a grade even if they're not able to be in class. I'm going to bring up one example. We recently had a student who for anyone that has to submit a census or an attendance report, I had a student in my graduate class who wasn't actively engaged in the course after the first week, so I kind of had to mark them as not attending. However, they were, thanks to Pressbooks results, the student was completing assignments once it got to about the second or third week in the course, I would say. And we had a situation where the student was in danger of being dropped from the course because I originally marked them as not attending. But because Pressbooks results was recording the grades and I had that evidence of the student completing assignments, I was able to kind of go back to the registrar's office and even show the fact that the student was completing assignments, because if they were completing assignments in Blackboard and they were removed from the course, then all that work gets removed. So that was actually a recent example where Pressbooks has been extremely helpful. And that was kind of the summary of the first slide. As far as the pedagogical challenges that were addressed, just bringing a free open access concept to the course. I know a lot of faculty members who teach accounting, they use their commercial textbook publishers for courses. I used to do that, but it caused a lot of problems. So shifting towards open access resources has been a game changer for my course. And then layering Pressbooks on top of that and the grade passback has just made life so much easier, and it's delivered a lot of value towards the students. And some of the results that I just briefly noticed was that there was a lot less students who were dropping the course or failing the course or having to withdraw from the course, which ultimately, from a university perspective, hinders degree completion rates and also student success. Ultimately, I think we all want our students to be engaged in course and receiving passing grades to matriculate into more advanced courses or progressing towards graduation. So I've seen anecdotally a lot less drop, failed, and withdrawn students, which is very helpful for student success. And I mentioned that story before of just even if students get a late start to class, things happen all the time time. We're all humans. Maybe it's a family emergency, personal emergency, maybe it's a work conflict. A lot of our students work full time and go to school. I think this has allowed students, Pressbooks has allowed students to engage at a high level with the course on a week by week basis or at the pace that works best for the student and meeting the student where they're at. And ultimately, just been really positive experience, and I appreciate the Pressbooks team and Steele and everybody who's been working hard to even improve these software and tools on a monthly basis. So it's definitely been a great positive experience for me. And on the next slide, the last slide, I just wanted to wrap up with I was able. What's nice about Pressbooks is that when you create your textbook or adapt your textbook in the platform, you actually get the analytics of which page was being viewed, when it was viewed, and kind of what website it came from. So since using this course since August up until now, April 20th, I was able to have around it was 6,200 pages viewed and or different viewers and whatnot. So it's just a positive sign that not only are students at the university using the Pressbooks platform, but also I do have a web link and I do kind of market it and try to share it with other people. So it just shows that there is value that's being had by the people, I guess, since they continue to revisit the textbook. How many people really revisit a textbook? So I'm sure my other colleagues on this call have similar experiences. So I'm gonna kick the mic
Well,
over to
I
them.
just want to
Yeah,
say, Phil, on
yeah.
this slide, if you look down here, like the number two refer is your LMS. So a ton of students are coming from the LMS, but even more prominent is are people finding it through the search engine on the open web. And that's, I think, really cool. You're talking about making this learning resource available through your LMS for a grade, but also it's publicly available and helping learners potentially in the course or potentially outside of your course learn more about accounting quickly. So I think that's a really, really cool takeaway. Thanks for sharing that slide, Phil.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steele.
Oh, we'll go next to Kate. Kate, you want me to steer into the next slide? Okay.
Thanks, Steele. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Neff. I am a senior lecturer in Spanish at the University of Virginia, and I'm also currently serving in the role of director of the Spanish language program, which encompasses the elementary and intermediate levels. So that program serves between 600 and 700 students per semester. And my predecessor in the director role initiated a project to start developing open resources to be used in our lower level Spanish courses. We're currently engaged in curriculum redesign as well. So we have a lot of moving parts here and things that we're working on through the OER project. And we are currently focusing on developing the resources for Spanish 2010, our intermediate Spanish class, and Spanish 2020, our advanced intermediate Spanish class. And this semester, we piloted our open book in Pressbooks for Spanish 2010. The overall project goals are to increase affordability and accessibility for these high enrollment courses, to diversify and better integrate cultural materials, and also shift the pedagogical focus from grammar-based to proficiency-based, which is a shift that's happening kind of at large in language curricula. We focused first on Spanish 2010 because for the past several years, we've been doing some work on reorganizing material in the textbook and incorporating cultural material from outside the textbook, including material from an existing open resource called Accesso, and also developing projects to be used in that course. We've had support using Pressbooks through the UVA library for the past several years. And I want to shout out to Bethany Mickle, who's in the audience, who's our great OER librarian. So that's the overall context for the project that we're doing. I want to talk a little bit more about the shift in pedagogy because most language textbooks, number one, are very expensive, and number two, are built around linguistic structures and grammatical structures, which current language research suggests is not really the way that students acquire language. So one of our goals for our textbook was to prioritize comprehensible input and cultural material and actually a lot of authentic language use over memorization of discrete grammar structures. So our book, instead of being organized around grammatical structures, is organized around cultural texts. There we have pages for which we call lecciones, which are organized around a cultural text, and H5P activities that pull out vocabulary and different linguistic structures from the text itself. And then there is additional support included in what we call referencia pages, where the students have explanations of grammatical topics and lots of optional practice that they can use to study the material on their own time. So we actually have over 200 H5P activities in our textbook, and some of those are required for the students, but then there are a whole lot that are just optional. So students can go back and do different activities kind of to the extent that they need to feel confident with the material. One side benefit that we've seen with the use of Pressbooks as opposed to a publisher produced textbook is that the integration with Canvas has actually been a lot easier on the instructor side. It's really helpful that the coordinator of a particular course can set up the course in Canvas and create all of the assignments that link to the pages in the Pressbooks with their concurrent H5P activities, and then just share that Canvas page with all of the instructors teaching a particular course, since we have multi-section courses. With the publisher book that we were using, every individual instructor basically had to do every single step of the setup process. So this has definitely made our life easier from the instructor side as well. This current semester, so last semester I piloted one unit of the Pressbook, and then I and another instructor are piloting the entire book this semester in our Spanish 2010 courses, and it's been a really great experience. It's really helped us to see where the students are finding benefit in the different activities. And one thing about language courses is that we're already used to a very high level of interaction with the course material, because most language textbooks have a homework platform that goes with the book that offers a whole lot of practice with feedback, automatic grading, a lot of the things that you see in H5P. So we've been able to maintain that high standard of interaction in the courses, but for free, and prioritizing the material that we want to prioritize, which is really exciting for us. And I wanted to share a few comments from the mid-semester survey that we gave to them. It was really, the results were very positive. It was very encouraging. And I won't read all of these to you, but you can see that students really like how there are lots of resources that they can utilize on a flexible basis, that they have multiple opportunities to do the activities if they don't get it the first time. It contributes to their understanding. It's user-friendly. It's easy to navigate. There was another comment that is not included here, but one student said, "I like this book better than the one I used last semester in my Spanish class at UVA, which was a publisher book." So that was really fun for us to see that students are actively preferring the Pressbooks platform for the work that they're doing in the course.
Thanks so much, Kate. I wanted to highlight just the students mentioning the ability to practice. And this one in particular leapt out to me. I appreciate how forgiving the activities are. If I don't answer correctly, I can try again until I get it right. You can see they don't have the language of formative assessment, but that's absolutely like they're practicing until they understand. And that would feel really gratifying to me as an instructor, to see like someone being excited to practice. That's great. Like that's what we want. So thank you, Kate. I really appreciate that. We'll go next to Rebecca, who is both a history instructor and an instructional designer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Lindsay. My day job is an instructional designer at Utah Valley University. I work in the Office of Teaching and Learning on our campus. And then I guess I moonlight, I don't know. I do teach one class of history a semester, and I teach a variety of the general education courses. And so I have an opportunity to use Pressbooks for a variety of courses. When I started out with Pressbooks, what I really wanted to do was to have a textbook that students can access the first day. It doesn't cost them, and they're able to just get into the course and get going. And there are quite a number of good history books, from US history to world history. And another one of the things that I really liked was that I could go in, if I'm using OER content, I can modify it to fit what my class needs and the needs of my students. So it was a good start to use Pressbooks for the OER content. Knowing that Pressbooks does have H5P, I've used H5P for a long time. And I was excited to see that it was integrated with Pressbooks. And so I started to add some of the H5P activities. At our institution, we do kind of have, I call it the standalone version of H5P as well. And because of the integration that we had with our standalone version, I kind of did kind of this mixed thing where I had the OER content from Pressbooks, and then we use the H5P. And recently, in the last, I don't know, couple of years, with the improvement of how Pressbooks has continually improved their product, which I think is fantastic. I've been able to see the value of using the H5P activities just right in my content. And so I signed on to this pilot and was able to see Pressbooks in action, the H5P in action, and the Pressbooks results in action. So that was great. As the instructional designer side, I'll probably talk a little bit more about the instructional designer side than the instructor side. For our campus, we are lucky to have our state consortium has Pressbooks for across the state, and so all of our faculty have access to H5P. So what that means is they just need to go in and create their account, and they can use Pressbooks, and then also incorporate the H5P. Because of funding at most universities, I'm sure they have this issue, I guess you could call it, that we have a limited number of H5P licenses. And so this opens up the option for faculty to create their own interactives, where they can be creative, they can develop, we can work with an instructional designer as well, but they can use their own creativity to create what they want and what they need for their students in their courses. How Pressbooks has recently integrated Pressbooks with our LMS is Canvas. So with Canvas, it's easy for faculty to integrate the elements. It's much like how they would integrate some of their content from a regular publisher, and so it's pretty something that they recognize. And then finally, because of Pressbooks results, they can track their students. They can start to see what their students are doing. And I also appreciate that Pressbooks is continuing to improve their Pressbooks results, so that more and more of the activities that H5P has will be able to be integrated with their results, so that faculty can see how students are answering, not just that they are answering. So, sorry. For the pedagogical challenges, for my specific class, I needed to see how my students are reading, because basically this was the textbook. And so are they reading? Are they understanding what they're reading? And so adding some of those learning checks and knowledge checks and reading checks into the course and into the textbook helped me to see where the students were kind of faltering a little bit, and where we needed to talk maybe a little bit more. I appreciated how easy it is to create interactive content, so you can do it on the fly if you need to, and you can integrate it fairly quickly and fairly easily. And also you can make content that is easily updated. So for instance, if you start to see that some of your learning check questions are showing up on the internet, you can easily update those to something different, so that you are actually assessing the students and they're not just finding the answers fairly easily. As far as instructional design, we this is a way that students can, or faculty can develop their own textbooks. They can bring in OER materials. They may want to maybe just create a module that has an interactive article that goes in with their course. And so it's really quite flexible as to how they can use it. They can integrate the knowledge checks, the interactive elements, and they don't have to depend on an individual license, which means that they don't necessarily have to depend on an instructional designer to build it for them. They can do it for themselves. And it's, again, we've talked about this quite a bit, where faculty can track their students' progress. And as Pressbooks Results continually improves, they can again see how their students are answering, not just that the students are answering and finishing an activity. So these are the next slide. So just quickly, the key benefits, again, kind of hit my goal of that Pressbooks is cost effective. It's available for students. First day of the semester, they can get in, they can get going. The H5P activities are there. They are easy to create. They're easy to update, and you can use your own knowledge that you have gained through all of the schooling that you have gone through, and share, you know, what you're excited about, and it can rival publisher content. And it's easy to integrate. You can integrate it into Canvas. You can follow students' progress, and again, you can follow it more granularly. And we're looking forward to more of the content types to be integrated with the Pressbooks Results, as again Pressbooks continues to improve this product. As far as instructional design, as we start to share this more widely with our faculty, we'll start to see, hopefully, that faculty are willing to go in and to create modules, create textbooks. We have in the past few semesters, we have the art history department on our campus who have developed quite a few Pressbooks for their courses. And so that's been exciting to see. H5P is available again to all the faculty without an individual license. So again, we can go in, we can show them how to use H5P, give them a good starting point. If they ever have questions, they can come back to us and ask questions. And again, the Pressbooks is easily integrated for faculty. They recognize and can see kind of how it's integrated, so you don't have to show them the download upload thing with importing courses and all that kind of stuff. It's easily just go into your module, you go to your external tool, etc. One issue that we are probably going to face in the future as we see this more widely available is, has faculty worked together on one book? We may see questions on, well, what if we want to change the individual activities on a page? Maybe we want to change a question. And so we'll need to cross that bridge and kind of work through that. That's, you know, that's part of the instructional design and design of the textbook. And I think that we can use Pressbooks in a way that will help faculty, but we'll also be able to use it to look at it as an individual tool for individual faculty as well. So,
Rebecca, thanks so much. I think it's always a hard job speaking with two hats on, and I think you did a really nice job of talking about both the perspective of the instructional designer and from a practicing instructor in the history department. So appreciate that. We're going to go next to Cameron Ford, who's going to tell us about his unique context at the University of Central Florida. Be prepared. It may shock you. Go ahead, Cameron.
Man, that's quite an intro. Thank you, Steele. Not quite sure how to I have to reposition my beginning here. So I kind of backed into using Pressbooks a couple of years ago. I was using I started teaching a course that is a mixed modality course. We call it reduced seat time here at the University of Central Florida. We're in Orlando, if you're not familiar with us. And so I was putting a lot of online learning modules out, and then students will come in for, I call them experience labs, where we work on tasks. And so I've got the course kind of conceptually divided up into learning, practicing, and performing activities. And I was using a different platform to create my learning modules, but it was quite expensive. And the university decided that we did a pilot project, and I got pretty invested in trying to get my stuff on there and make it work and everything like that. But ultimately, the university decided it didn't want to pay the license. And so I was kind of stuck between academic years, wondering what I was going to do to continue delivering these kind of modules. And one of our instructional designers suggested that I use Pressbooks. And it turned out we had an instructional designer who had quite a bit of expertise in that. And I was actually, once I found out all this and started using it, I was really mad at them for not suggesting using it in the first place, because I probably could have saved myself a lot of grief monkeying around with multiple platforms. So anyway, a little more about the context. So I teach a course on creativity and entrepreneurship. And I've also done my scholarly research in this area, and there really aren't any textbooks that kind of do what I want to do, because it's a lot of it's kind of individual mindsets and creative thinking processes and critical thinking processes. But then it gets into a lot of entrepreneurship and economics kind of stuff too. And I just can't find all that stuff in one resource. So I started creating my own content, and I have to do this at a really enormous scale. We have 800 students in the course in the fall and again in the spring, and then another short session in the summer, which has 400. So it's almost 2,000 students a year in this biweekly or in this mixed mode thing where we have these biweekly labs. And the other thing that really makes the course challenging is I've made a commitment for every student in my class to work on their own startup idea. They have to come up with a problem that they care about, develop a solution that's theirs, and then develop a sort of a kind of like a plan for going to market with it. And this means there's just a lot of grading. So the learning part, I use Pressbooks to create a dozen online learning modules. And then I have 6 homework assignments that they do, where they have to do like startup steps, and they're kind of incremental movements towards articulating a value proposition, and also empirically kind of demonstrating that there's some reason to have hope that their value proposition might be worth something. And then there's a couple other components. So we have a competition at the end of the semester where they submit to a big platform we have, and we have attendance requirements for the labs and so forth. So the GTAs, I have 4 GTAs. So this is kind of a brute force kind of mechanism for doing all the homeworks. And then there's a lot of other administrative things that have to get taken care of. But I don't have enough capacity to really do the learning modules with a lot of manual labor. So it's really been super helpful for having Pressbooks work as seamlessly as it does now. And the results viewer has been a godsend for me, because it allows students to monitor their own progress as they're doing their learning modules, and kind of not have to email us constantly with like, hey, I did this lesson and it didn't record, what's going on, just then they get mad at me. And we figured out that these things work like 99.6% of the time, and when they don't work, it's just some random error with their browser that's really easy for them to fix. So we've really had a very nice year this year going through this, where students are recommended to actually open up the results viewer and a learning module at the same time. And as they're going through the learning module, which usually has about 10 or 12 like videos or readings in it, and every one of those they'll submit questions. They can be monitoring those things being recorded and then transferred over to Canvas, all at the same time. So they can handle their own business, which is a really huge part of this. So my reasons for adopting Pressbooks are actually, I'd already started using interactive modules that have graded content in them, and I love that. And this was just a better free solution where I had better institutional support, and I could kind of grow with with Steele and his staff as they were adding additional features and so forth. When I started, they didn't have the results viewer, and that was not great. Now they do have the results viewer, and it's pretty great. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so the constraints I face, so the challenges, I guess you want to say, I just have a lot of students. So I have to think about how to do things effectively at scale. So I need to, the learning part of my class are these learning modules I create. It's a lot of work to put them together, but once they're built, the students can go through them pretty autonomously and asynchronously and so forth. And those are synced up with the homework assignments and the classes so that they all kind of land on a topic at the same time and they come in and they're performing in class and they're well informed at that point. And again, since they're working on their own ideas, they do a lot of presenting their ideas to each other in class, and I have them, vote. I have them invest in each other's ideas, a little paper money I give them and stuff like that, trying to sort of gamify a lot of the class. And the concepts that are presented in learning modules comes up a lot in the activities that we do. So the learning module has been really great because I was trying to address some challenges I'd faced teaching a different large lecture capture course a few years back, where we did a lot of research on what people were doing with the videos. And the short answer is nothing. About half the class wasn't really watching the videos that were posted it was all of our core classes were taught this way. And the drop off on video watching was, really high. And I can't really blame the students. The videos were terrible. They were really long and boring and just not good. So now I've chopped up my videos into anywhere between like 6 to 12 minutes each. I embed questions throughout the videos. And Steele's kind of alluding to some things I do. I don't let students fast forward. And they only get one shot at each question. They don't get to retake them. So I always tell my students, like, make your first shot your best shot. If you get to a question, it pops up and you don't know the answer, they're allowed to rewind the video and watch to try and learn the answer. And as I was actually looking at my grades while we started out here to kind of see what the grade progression was, and they're pretty high. I mean, they started lower and then they kind of got the hang of it and they went up. But I like that. This is only 36% of their overall grade. So even if those grades kind of get inflated a little bit, it actually doesn't inflate their overall grades by very much. So I know that they have to watch the entire video because I always put a question at the end and they can't skip it. They can't fast forward over a whole bunch of stuff, which they're usually tempted to do. So they're kind of learning kind of slow and steady. They have to be relatively engaged because they have to get the questions right. If they just, phase out or they're making spaghetti or something, they have to wind it back and check it out if they want to get a high score. And the assessments are recorded and we use those for grading, so they count. And they use the results viewer to kind of handle their own business. If they see that something didn't record, they can go back and do that lesson again and resubmit it and it records and they're fine. We've hardly had any, I call them X files, like there's things that we just can't figure out. I think we've had 2 out of 800 times 12 modules. It's like 1,000 instances. Well, no, more than that. 10,000 instances, I think. Anyway, it's a lot. We've had very, very few issues like that. So I can go to the last slide. So what do I kind of get out of this? I find once you kind of get the hang of using Pressbooks, which H5P and the results viewer kind of collectively, I find the platform's relatively easy to use. It's very flexible. I haven't been using the essay module, but as I'm watching Steele demo that, I'm intrigued and I may start using that moving forward to try and mix things up a little bit. I usually do multiple choice, true, false. I've used fill in the blanks. My students tend to complain about those ones, so I usually don't use them a lot. But it seems like it does a pretty good job of measuring their comprehension of the material as they're going through it so they can apply it to the homeworks. The students generally give us really positive feedback about the videos, and just the system is pretty elegant and simple to use. Very, very few inquiries are like, I don't know how to do this. There are very few of that. It's very easy for them to figure it out. I get to force them to watch everything. I work really hard. I have like 120 videos and about 360 questions embedded in all those videos, about 3 per video. So I put a lot of effort into this, and I want to make sure that they're consuming the stuff I'm preparing. And obviously the automated grading is fantastic. The grade transfer has been basically flawless. I don't honestly remember one instance of something showing up in the results viewer that did not transfer to Canvas. So this is free. It's great because it's our university, like all of you, are trying to push student costs down. And so that's another great thing about it. I'm also able to include my own self-produced content, but I use a lot of videos from online and also a lot of readings. There is a ungodly amount of content about entrepreneurship on the internet. So I'm taking advantage of that. I'm also using a lot of AI stuff. The lack of by spacing out these questions the way they are, it's kind of relaxing for my students. They just are doing little dribs and drabs. We have no tests. I use this as an alternative assessment for exams. So that they don't have to go into our testing labs or use up class time or anything like that to do this. And I just feel like the students, by kind of pacing out the acquisition of the material, they kind of gains confidence and demonstrates mastery more effectively than having them cram for an exam. Not watching any of the material or doing any of the readings, trying to cram some notes they bought offline or whatever, and then going in and doing it. We just see way too much of that kind of stuff at a huge university like ours. All right, stop there.
Wow. Thank you again, each of the panelists. I think I heard a bunch of different kind of common threads, things that were echoed and repeated, and things that were also slightly different from each of you. I think what's gratifying to me is just seeing the different ways that Pressbooks results can be used in different types of learning contexts, whether it's a 800-person, largely online course with video-based instruction, or 15 students trying to learn accounting in 6 weeks, or someone that's learning language and wants to have more practice on understanding cultural contexts. I also really appreciated the instructional design perspective and thinking about how can I make this easier for faculty so that they can do it themselves. I think that's a challenge that many people are facing. I want to turn it over to the audience. If you have questions or if you have things that you'd like to ask the group, you can use the Q&A, and we'd love to hear from you, questions that you have that might be more about your teaching situation or things you'd like to ask the panel. The first question that I wanted to pose to the panel while the audience is thinking or writing their question was, I heard a lot about different kinds of assessment, both assessment that you do with Pressbooks results and assessment you do outside of Pressbooks results with other tools. How do you see Pressbooks results complementing your overall approach to assessment in the courses that you teach?
Anyone else want to kick
Go
off?
ahead, Phil. Start us off.
All right,
I
no
just
problem.
talked. I didn't want to
Yeah.
jump in again.
Yeah, you jump in. You jump in.
Oh, as I said, I didn't want to jump in because I just finished, but I will jump in really quickly since you offered. So I have like the learning part of my class, which is what I use Pressbooks for, is really mostly about comprehension. I want students to demonstrate that they, are understanding the stuff I'm doing. So I don't see the assessment there as super critical thinking oriented and so forth. Then we have this whole chunk of stuff, which is doing pretty in-depth written work that's very hard for AI to inform the way I design the sections or those assignments. Those are graded very, thoroughly, and we give written feedback on all those. That's a huge amount of work, but that's where they get to do a lot more qualitative stuff. It's more creative work. We get to see their critical thinking, and we actually encourage them to use AI. AI is being used a lot in entrepreneurial settings to promote research and so forth. And then we have them come into class and have that more tactile kind of where they're interacting with other people, walking around the room, interviewing each other, sitting down at tables and doing presentations like it's a boardroom. So we just have kind of qualitatively different things that we're doing to deal with different components. And I even have competitions at the end of the semester where I dole out extra credit to people who get particularly high evaluations from their peers. So
thank you for making that
up
explicit. I think that's really helpful to hear. For other people.
Yeah, just trying to just mix up a lot of different formats, but in the H5P stuff has a really clear mission for me. It's really just helping me to disseminate the information, kind of like lectures and stuff.
Sure. I see some nodding.
And we're more chopped up and entertaining kind of format and more paced.
Phil or Kate, was there anything that you wanted to add or say differently? I thought you both nodding, but I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that topic as well.
Yeah, I would just, I see the Pressbooks results activities as formative assessment. And because so many students come into our courses with varying levels of comfort with language, depending on if they've come through our program or they're coming from various high school programs across the country, it's really important to us to have lots and lots of formative assessment that's very, very low stakes so that those who need the extra practice can do it and those who don't need it don't have to. So yeah, Pressbooks Results is very much formative assessment. And then like Cameron said, class is much more the actual, we're talking all the time. They're getting that face-to-face communicative practice. So the Pressbooks Results sort of covers the individual formative, engaging with the text, getting listening practice, dealing with the vocab, practicing the grammar structures.
Yeah, I was struck by something you said in your presentation about how I can't remember what the word you used for them, but there's a set of activities that are a bit more of the grammar drilling that are optional. How do you set up optional activities or grades in your course? You mean it's like you can do
It's just
them?
not assigned. Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
not assigned in Canvas. So
Okay.
so the activities that deal with the text that we want all the students to be doing and getting grades on, we just set up in
That goes.
Pressbooks to
Okay.
be able to integrate with Canvas. And then the other ones, the students can access them in the textbook anytime they want. But the grades, there are no grades.
I see. Okay, so you have some that are graded and some that are just practice. They see the response, but it doesn't count towards the grade.
Yep.
That's an interesting idea too. I hadn't considered that in quite that way. Phil, anything you wanted to add? Or Rebecca?
Oh, it's a ditto to the same thing Kate said, just to be able to see the proficiency that someone has when they come into class. It's a great tool for that, especially as we all have, introductory, intermediate, advanced level courses. Sometimes students are coming in with just all different types of proficiencies. So to be able to establish that and to have activities that you can get that information in for free is the game changer.
Thanks. If you have questions in the chat and you'd like to pose them, this is a great time to do it now. We're close to wrapping up. Some questions that were asked earlier and answered, I just want to make sure everybody saw those. A couple of people asked, how are essays graded with H5P? And the answer to that is the person who's creating the essay activity can define a set of keywords and give them weights and points. So it's basically automatic scoring based on the presence of keywords. Many people think that's good enough for just quick and easy, and other people think, well, it's not giving me the grade I want, but I want to see the result, what they wrote, and then I will manually adjust the grade afterwards. I think that's pretty common with the essay type. Someone else asked, do the learners have to complete the activities from the LMS to get the grade, or can they just complete it in the public version of the Pressbook to get the grade? The answer to that is if you want the grade passback to work, the session has to start from the LMS because that's the only way that Pressbooks will know who the person is and what course context they were in. Learners, as Kate mentioned, can definitely do practice activities in the public version of the book, but in those situations, we don't know who the student is, we don't know what course they're in, so we can't send grades to the gradebook. So if you want it to be graded in your LMS, the launch has to happen from the course using the process we showed earlier.
Yeah, we're also considering using it for monetizing some content where we may actually offer it more as a continuing education kind of thing. And also Canvas has a Canvas credentials component now. They bought a company called Badger and incorporated it into the platform. So you can offer micro credentials and badges through the platform. So there's a variety of kind of very new ways that you can use a resource like Pressbooks, both within the traditional classroom, but also in other kinds of external facing.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I think that's something that Rebecca alluded to as well. You can use this with public books, OER, but it can also be private content that you don't have to make the book public. It could be only available in the LMS through your course. And Pressbooks Results will automatically provision the learner accounts and make sure that they have access to what they need to have access to complete those activities. I wanted to thank everybody. Rebecca, was there anything you wanted to add? I know
I was just going to say an idea for kind of incorporating some of the either low stakes or no stakes activities into a course. I would probably encourage faculty to actually include them in our Canvas. We have the option to make an activity not count toward a grade, but it's still there so that students will know how they are improving. So it kind of gives them, that kind of impetus to keep going. So
yeah, they get all the same visibility without any of the penalty of a low score or low grade. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again, panelists. We really appreciate you sharing your experience. We appreciate you being generous with your time today and with your students. Things to look forward to. Those of you who attended the webinar, there's going to be a follow-up email that shares some links and references. We'll also share the recording and some related resources to everybody who registered. We appreciate all that you do to support open education. If you're at an institution that already has Pressbooks Results active on your network, you can see the little box below your chapter. You can feel free to use the guides and get started now. If you don't see that configuration box, it's typically a sign that your institution hasn't yet enabled Pressbooks Results. So you should check with your network manager to see whether that's possible or whether they're interested in doing that. And if so, we can help get that set up and configured. I know people are starting just now to think about summer courses, and maybe summer will be when you start to think about your fall courses. But the earlier you get a head start on that, the better, because sometimes the LTI configuration is a hurry up and wait situation. So
one quick follow-up, Steele, I know we're out of time, but I want to make it clear that I'm not sure it jumped out when I was talking about it. There's a Pressbooks Results thing that's faculty facing, but there's also a student facing side of it as well. So students can see just their scores on their side of Canvas and monitor their progress on everything. So that's been really important for me. It helps them understand kind of what they're doing, but also helps them identify problems and fix them without having to intervene with that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, empowering learners is really a goal here, like with information of how they're doing so that they can retry or correct performance. I think that was something Kate mentioned as being really important for their practice as well. Again, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks for being here, and thanks for what you do. We'll see you next time, and enjoy your spring until then.